real stuff. We'll have to prepare the golden gate for replication. This is where the real stuff will start, like the golden gate administration stuff. Okay, so first thing we need to know is we have to enable the supplemental logging. Many people fail to understand what is this supplemental logging. So what is the meaning of supplement? It is nothing but having something extra, right? Extra apart from what you have. For example, people take supplements for making muscles. That means it is something extra in order to build the muscles, right? I mean, whatever diet they are having, still they need to have some extra supplements in order to build the muscles. Same way, in Oracle also what happens is the logging, whatever data is written to the redo log files, that is not enough for replication. We need, yes, who is it?
Arun, excuse me. This is Vishwajit.
Yeah, tell me.
Arun, this is the same like we enable this supplemental login for the log miner tool.
Yes, we do it, but we need. I mean, there are two phases of supplemental logging in Golden Gate. So I'm talking about this DB level right now. We also have table level, schema level, different levels of supplemental logging. So I'll talk about it when we are in the Golden Gate, when we enable the supplemental logging from there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's come back to the example which I was talking. So supplemental is like having some extra, right? The same way, whenever Oracle writes data onto the redo log files, it is not enough for any replication tool to read and perform the replication. We want some more data to be written to the redo log files. So when you enable the supplemental logging, of course, there is more data which is written to redo log files than what was previously being written. So we need to enable this force logging inside the database so that Golden Gate gets more data about the transactions that you perform in the prod DB. So one example, if you want to know, as far as I know, when you perform any update, so what will happen is your undo block details will also be put into the redo log files with their physical address. Now I am not in depth into the processing, like where it is used and how Golden Gate uses that information. But there is one example that I'll give you in some time when we are setting up supplemental logging via Golden Gate, because there are two levels of supplemental logging we have to enable. So this supplemental logging, what we are talking right now, it is at database level. Okay. So let me repeat it. So there is a DB level, schema level, and table level. These are the different levels of supplemental logging we have. Now, right now, we want the DB level. We are enabling the supplemental logging for the entire database. And this will actually add up some extra data into the redo log files. But when you are working inside the Golden Gate, there are two other levels of supplemental logging you need to enable. If you don't enable, further data will not be written to the redo log files. Now, when I will talk about schema level and table level, I will talk about what are the issues if you don't enable supplemental logging, or how supplemental logging helps replication to work perfectly well. So the primary requirement is we need to have DB level supplemental logging enabled. So let us enable the DB level supplemental logging. Let us clear the screen. Select name, open mode from $, database. This is prod DB, right? So supplemental logging, and we also need this force logging enabled. I'll run the same command on the other system. Scale plus /SS DBA. So when you are working in this multi-terminal environment, make sure you check the database name. Okay, this is perfect, right? So supplemental logging is not enabled on both the databases by default. We'll enable it. This will enable the supplemental logging. and this will enable the force logging. So what is this force logging? There are some commands when you issue, you can skip writing the redo information. So we don't want somebody to skip the redo information, because if a transaction is not recorded, like you can use no logging clause. So if you're using no logging clause, the transaction details will not be logged into the redo log files. And if it is not logged into the redo log files, then how the transaction replication will happen? So we need this one over here. Now let us check this once again. Okay, so these two must be enabled right now. There are environments which are sensitive, which do not allow you. This comes under the Golden Gate performance tuning, where you don't need to really enable the force logging, because it adds up overhead onto the not overhead. It's just additional parameter over here. So if you know some applications which are built in a way that I mean, whatever the incoming data is, there is no logging clause over here over there. Then you don't need to enable the force logging. It is not always that you have to enable, but because we are in the test, you should enable it. Okay. So somewhere many a times I have seen people even skip the DB level logging. They actually prefer the schema level and table level when it comes to very big databases where performance is important. Okay, so I think a little bit I'll talk about this one when we are in Golden Gate performance tuning. There I'll tell you when to disable and how to disable it. So in general, make sure these two are enabled. Now this is one new parameter which I was about to talk to you guys. This parameter, I think, should be there in this version of the database. Yes. Can you see this one? Enable Golden Gate replication. This parameter is introduced only in this version 12.102. Even if you are working with 12.101, this parameter is not there. So from 12.101, in case if you are practicing replication, if you do not find this parameter, you can skip this. Okay, you don't need to enable it, because if the parameter is not there, from where you will enable it? So if the version is different, you will not find this parameter. But just to show you guys, from this version, you have to enable this parameter in order to allow Golden Gate to perform the replication. So let us enable this parameter. We have to make it to true. The same we have to do it onto the target system. Okay, create Golden Gate database user. From here, a little bit of complexity will be there. But guys, I'll try to slow down the things as much as possible because I want to make sure you guys understand the things rather than we rush and complete the things. Okay, so my goal is to make sure you get the things right in the first time. So how are we going to perform the replication? This is a little bit tricky. See, I have two, these are the two databases. This is our prod and we have the dev DB, right? This is the dev. On both the servers, I have one user Fox, and over here also I have Fox user. Now, I want to replicate from Fox user to Fox. I can do this, but what if I want to add some replication for Tom? We have another two schemas for which I have to perform the replication. So we cannot depend on the name of the schema for which we want to perform the replication. I repeat, we cannot use the name of the schema for which we are performing the replication. What we do is we rather create a third schema like OGG, that is Oracle Golden Gate, and this schema will be responsible. This schema will be responsible to perform all the replications in both the database. So how do we understand this one? For example, we have sysdb, right? Sysuser. Why do we use sysuser? For dbadmin on both the databases, correct? The same way, we are creating a separate user that is OGG. This user will be using for all the replication purpose. Like we'll grant DBA to this user. This will have the DBA permissions, and once you give the DBA permission, definitely it can do select, insert, update, delete from any other schema. Now, if I want to perform replication from Fox to Fox or Fox to Tom, I can just do it via this OGG schema. So all in all, we are creating a separate schema for replication administration. Okay, I repeat, we are creating a separate schema for replication administration. For all our replications, we'll be using OGG schema. And our next task is to create this user in both the databases. Okay, one more example just to, if you know, there is one more DBSNMP. This is used by your OEM to administer your databases. Right? The same way we are using a separate user. If you are using the same schema name like Fox, it creates a trouble. Like if I want to add other schemas, it really creates a trouble. So it is very good to centralize the administration. You create OGG schema and all your replication is handled by that user. Okay. So we need to create a dedicated Golden Gate user on both source and target databases. The Golden Gate user on source reads the transactions and the Golden Gate user on the target applies the transaction. The job of this user would be to read all the transactions which are involved in the replicated tables or schemas. Let's take if I want to replicate Fox to Fox. So OGG user will read those transactions and pass it on to the target. And on the target, OGG user will be the one who will perform the insert, update, deletes, all those transactions into the target DB. Okay. So we will create new user with dedicated table space on both the databases. It's a good idea. We have a dedicated table space like GG_TBS. And this table space, we are giving 500 MB size. I think that's good enough. And this location should work over here. If you are going with default locations, guys, you can just copy paste from the document and then you can also save some time in these areas. I believe like there's no point in having some custom location of your database because how much time you will save over here. I want you guys to focus on the replication stuff, not on all these small things. And then meanwhile, I'll create the GGTBS on the target database as well. Okay. So how to set enable golden gate replication if it is the source is SQL Server or DB2? See, this parameter is related to Oracle. It is not related to other databases. You need to check the prerequisite documents for those servers. Okay, so this will not be available in those databases. And guys, let us focus only on Oracle right now. Let us not get into all the other databases. So keep your mind completely fresh. Learn one replication on one database vendor perfectly well. Later on, you can relate the things. Okay, this is how we have to do. This is the first step. So you need to know the process flow. That is important. So right now, if we get into other vendors, we will not be able to learn even single vendor replication. Okay, so what I'm doing next is we are creating the user OGG, and the password is also same. The default table space is GG underscore TBS. So the same user we are creating both on source. This is the prod DB, and on the target, this is the dev DB, right? Guys, we are only doing the prerequisites right now. Now grant admin privileges to OGG user. So we have a package that comes inside this database when you want to enable the Golden Gate user. So there are a lot of permissions. So with this package, automatically all those permissions will be given. Even though we get all those permissions, we have to grant DBA separately to this user. Why we have to grant DBA? Because in the DDL transactions, you will be altering the tables, right? So for that one, you need a DBA permission. So make sure you execute this package, and this is where you have to give the username to which you want to grant all the Golden Gate authentications. You can read this one, dbms underscore golden gate auth dot grant admin privileges. So we are granting all the Golden Gate privileges. I mean, earlier there were series of permissions you need to execute, but now we have it very simple. With this package, it will be automatically assigning all the required privileges over there. This will take a little time, and then we'll grant DBA to this user. Okay. Guys, as I mentioned earlier, if you have trouble in maintaining multiple terminals, try to complete everything on one terminal, close it, open the second one, and do it again. So now is where we'll be starting with the first process configuration, that is known as manager process. So what is the configuration we are going to do? If you remember correctly, the manager process is the one which will hold the port details, correct? So the default manager port detail is 7809. We'll be using the same port number in our configuration as well. So this port details we have to keep in this manager process. So now exactly your Golden Gate stuff will start. So how do we set this one? First of all, let us exit from the SQL Plus. Let me clear the screen. We have to go to the Golden Gate home location. I think we missed one step. What is that? Cat. Yes. We did not set the Golden Gate home location in the bash profile. Any which ways we'll use it. So where is the other document? Prepare Golden Gate. Okay, this is the step we have missed. Any which ways, this is there in the document. So on both the servers, edit the bash profile and put it above this one. It should be fine. Okay, and let's do same on this one also. Okay, so let us exit and switch to Oracle user again. Now go $gg underscore home. Okay, let us get inside this gg home. Just type ls. These are your golden gate binaries. Okay, the same will do it on this one, and then we'll continue with only one node. We'll switch to Oracle. So cd $gg underscore home. Perfect. This is our golden gate home location where we have golden gate binaries. So let me minimize this one and let us start. So what is the first thing that we are going to learn in the golden gate home is, like how we have SQL plus, we also have a utility in golden gate to administer all your golden gate stuff. It is known as ggsai. This is the golden gate service command line interface. Okay, so enter. This is where we have entered inside the golden gate, the command line interface, and we'll be using this command line interface extensively to administer the entire golden gate replication, to configure our extracts, replicates, the data pump process, also even the manager process. So the first goal is to configure the manager process. So how do we configure the manager process? First, we start the ggsi. Okay, the first command that you guys need to learn is, I think I'll have a notepad. I'm just writing some commands. So whatever we are going to use, so that it will be a reference for you guys. Info all. This is one command you will use again extensively to get the information of all the processes that are running inside your Golden Gate. Don't worry, we are not going to look at everything like today. Your Golden Gate administration is distributed, so we'll be looking very limited things today. And as we proceed with the course, you will learn other dimensions of the Golden Gate as well. So info all, we can see that manager is stopped. So why manager is stopped? Because we did not start the manager process while we were installing the Golden Gate. We will configure manager by ourselves, okay, and then we'll start the manager by ourselves. We didn't want Golden Gate to do this for us. So let us check the document once. I think we are not missing one step. Where is that one? Okay, we have, I think it will be in the next document, right? So over here, one thing you need to learn, guys, be very clear over here. Like in database, when you start the database, okay, startup, no mount. What happens? It reads a parameter file, correct? So what this parameter file does is, this parameter file tells how much RAM is to be allocated to the SGAPG and the other stuff. All the processes are to be started, your common locations, your control file locations, all those things will be there in the parameter file. So parameter file instructs something to the database, correct? This is very important. The parameter file instructs something to the database when you issue startup no mount. The same way, every process inside the Golden Gate needs to have a parameter file. Why? Because we have to define every parameter for each process. So we write some parameters, we define some parameters for every process in Golden Gate. Now, what are the different processes in the Golden Gate? We already know we have a manager, correct? We have extract, we have data pump, we have collector, we have replicate, right? And again on the target side also we have a manager. All these processes, okay, except the collector. If you remember, I told you guys we don't configure the collector because it is automatic. So except the collector, I'll just remove it from this list. All these processes, we have to configure a parameter file dedicated to each process. So what this parameter file will do is, it will tell something for that process to do. Because see, every process has a dedicated work. What is the job of manager? To hold the details of port number, correct? This is for port details. I mean, there are other things also. As of now, as I said, we'll understand Golden Gate in phase wises. So right now, let us understand only port details are there in the manager. Even there are a lot of things that you can put in the manager process. We are not getting into it. What all details will have in extract? The schema details, the table details, correct? Like which schema, which table we want to extract the data for. Then what is the job of the pump process? The pump process job is to read from the source trail. So it will have the details of source trail, TRAL trail, and remote server. Because it will read from the source trail and push the data onto the remote server. Same way replicate, what details will have in replicate? The target trail, correct? Because it reads from the target trail and replicates onto the target server, the target DB or target schema / table name, correct? And again, the manager will hold the port details onto the target server. So who tells all these things to these processes. You as a DB have to tell all these things to these processes. And how? By creating parameter file for each process. Okay, one thing is very clear. For every process to work, you have to create a parameter file. What all to put inside the parameter file, how to create parameter file, and where it is stored, all those things are secondary. We'll be looking at it later. Right now, the first thing we have learned in Golden Gate is for every process, we are going to create a parameter file. So let us get into the first process, that is manager. Manager is the one that runs on both the servers, source and target. If manager is not running, it will be a trouble for your extract, replicate, and also for other processes. So first goal, let us create a parameter file for the manager process, and we'll put only the port details, that is 7809. This is the default port number. So the first command that we have learned is info all. The second command that we are going to use is, that is edit param. It is nothing but edit parameter, and then you give the name of the process. Like in this case, we are editing the parameters for manager, right? Manager is in short also called as MGR. So if you type manager or MGR, it's one and the same. I mean, one benefit you get with MGR is little bit of less keystrokes on the keyboard. Rest all the same. Okay. So with this one, what happens is it will open the parameter file for you. Of course, there is a way. Pay your attention, guys. There is a way to create parameter files outside GGSI also. You use normal VI editor, you can do it, but it is always preferred to do it within the GGSI. Okay, it is always preferred because when you issue this command, if you see edit param mgr, if I issue this command, what will happen? Okay, yes, I was waiting for this one. Actually, I thought it is in the other document, but it should be above here. I'll add it up. Create sub dirs. Yeah. So, okay, I didn't want to talk about where the parameter file is stored, but we have to talk about it. So if you do not create the manager process from the run installer, what happens is Golden Gate has some directory structure, and there are some directories which hold these parameter files, which will hold your trail files, and there are again further directories. These directories are not created by default. If you see, all your parameter files reside under, this is your Golden Gate home, U01 app Oracle product GG, and this is the directory naming convention, dir, that is directory, prm, that is the parameter. So dir prm is the location where all your parameter files are stored in regards to all the processes that you configure. Now, so the issue over here is we did not start the manager process from the run installer. So these directories are not created. So how do you create these directories? This is, the error itself is giving us this command, create sub dirs. So when you issue this command, if I just hit enter, you can see so many subdirectories are created. Don't worry, we have a separate session to understand what these directories work and how they work. But right now, the most important one for us is dir prm, the first one. Can you see this will hold the parameter file. So let us create the subdirectories on the target server also. Okay, ggsci. So create sub dirs. Okay guys, for just to not to have confusion, I won't be touching the target putty session. It might create a confusion. Okay, so now these directories are in place. Let us issue this command, edit params mgr. So we are editing the parameter file for the mgr process. Hit enter. Now can you see this is nothing but your vi editor. So if you manually go ahead and create a parameter file under the dir PRM using VI editor, that is also fine. But as I mentioned earlier, it is preferred to do it within the Golden Gate GGSI prompt. So what we need to put inside this manager process, if you look at it, you just need to put only one detail, that is the port number. What is the port on which this manager process will be listening? So edit it and then port 7809. Just save and close. The commands are same, your VI editor commands. Done. So okay, so edit param mgr will edit the parameter file. Now the next thing that we have is how to view the parameter file. So you have one more command, view param mgr. So these commands are very simple, normal English commands. You can see I just have one line in the parameter file of the mgr, that is port number 7809. So let me put this command also over here. Guys, there are a lot of commands that you will learn during the course, but these all commands are very simple, straightforward commands. There is nothing special characters or something is there. Even in the parameter files, the parameters are self-descriptive. If you read the parameters, you can tell what it does. Those are simple English parameters. Okay. So what is the first thing we have accomplished right now? We have edited the manager parameter file. We have put the port details over there. Now let us do the same thing on the target server. So what I need to do is info all, just see the information of all the processes. We have manager that is stopped. So I need to edit the manager parameter file. So how do I edit? Edit param mgr. Just insert the port details 7809. Okay, many people ask me like, can we have different ports? Yes, you can have different ports. There's no hard and fast rule. So what is the difference like if we are having different ports? If you have different ports, remember one thing, a data pump pushes data onto the remote server, right? So in the data pump parameter file, you need to give the details of remote server along with the port number. Let us assume our source port is 7809 and target port is 1100. In the data pump, you have to mention the target server port number. Because if we don't specify the port number in the data pump, then how would data pump process push the source trail onto the remote server, correct? So just for the simplicity, we are going with the same 7809, but you can have different ports also. Should not be a problem. So let us check the parameters. View param mgr. So manager port is, we have defined the port number 7809. Great. Now after this manager process or the manager parameter file, minimum needs this one information to be started. It needs this information to start the mgr process. At least the port number should be there, otherwise you won't be able to start the mgr. So okay, for a few of the folks who are already working in the real-time environment, you can even give a port range over there like 7809-8809, something like that. So your manager will run dynamically on those ports. Okay, and now you will have a doubt like, what if we are using dynamic ports? Then this is the job of your manager process to actually connect with the other manager process and tell them what is the port on which it is listening. Okay, so all the port information, where it is listening, which manager is trying to contact the other manager, all those details are, all those stuff is managed by the manager process. So yes, we have an option to configure dynamic ports also, like a range of ports. So right now we are going with only one port, 7809. And as I mentioned, if we have this one information, port number 7809, we can start the manager process. So how do we start any process inside the Golden Gate? It is very simple. Start the process name. As I mentioned, manager process, in short, you can type it as mgr also. So if I just type start mgr, it will start the manager process. Let us start this one. Perfect. Manager is started. So how do you check the details? Nothing but info all. Now can you see status has been changed to running? Earlier it was stopped. Also one more thing, one more new command for you guys. This exclamation to execute previous command. Let's take you want to see this info all again, just type this exclamation mark and hit enter. It will continue to run the previous command in the golden gate prompt. Okay, so these are the basic commands. Let us start the manager over here also in the dev server. Start mgr info all. So it's running. So we have accomplished our first task, that is starting the manager process, and we have defined the port details on the manager process, correct? So let me check any questions. Okay, so the username should be OGG or anything else? No, you can have anything. That is something I prefer to use. So OGG is optional. The package is inbuilt, right? Yes, the Golden Gate package is inbuilt. Is the package is GG12C new feature? Kind of yes, but as I mentioned, like in 11G, we had to issue a lot of commands. There are actually list of commands or list of permissions that you have to separately give to the Golden Gate user. So is DBA privilege mandatory for OGG? Already required grant admin privileges provided by OGG, then why do we need the DBA? Okay, I have seen it somewhere. I am not getting the exactly where it created a trouble, but if you don't give DBA, somewhere it will create a trouble. I'm not sure about it. I'll research and get back to you. Once it gave me a trouble while I was doing some replication stuff. So then I recollected, okay, I did not give the DBA privilege. So yes.
So
Yeah.
Arun, so this is Pankaj here, and it was asked by me. So actually, what happened to get the DBA privileges? I need a it's an audit issue in my database right now. So is there any way I can bypass it?
Yeah, you can do it. Except DBA, you issue all the privileges manually, like we do it in 11G. So what I'll do is I have those list of commands in 11G. Let me write it down.
Okay.
So I'll forget. So I'll send it to all. Don't worry. How to?
Yeah, because if I give this DBA privileges to any other user, my audit team will raise concerns on that one. That's what I asked.
No problem. List of permissions in 11G. So I have this list of permissions in 11G. You need to give all those permissions, then it will be fine. Whether you give a DBA or you give those permissions, it's just one and the same. Yes. You have anything?
Thanks, Arun.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, there are issues in some environments, like how Pankaj is saying. There are issues like some people don't allow to configure DBA. Guys, I'll give you one more option. I think you can even use the system user, because system user has the DBA privilege. So that's a loophole. In case if you get any issues, rather than OGG, you can use system user. But again, on a personal note, it is always good to have a dedicated user. Like DBSNMP is a dedicated user for your OEM, and your sys user is for database administration. Same way, it is preferred to have a dedicated user for replication. Okay, guys. So perfect. So we have seen this one.